Welcome, Yulia. It is so wonderful to have you on my podcast. You are my teacher. You have been my guide. You have been my healer. I admire you, your heart, and your work so much. So, thank you for being here and teaching us and sharing something that you are so passionate and knowledgeable about yoga nidra.
Thank you, Erin, so much for inviting me. It's such an honor to talk about one of my favorite subjects and
Yeah,
be with you.
me
See the
too.
transition in you and how much you, over the years that I've known you, how much you have transformed. It gives purpose to my work, to just gives wings to what I do. And I'm so grateful to be in this conversation a few years later.
Yeah, me too. So, I teach yoga nidra and you were my teacher. You taught me how to teach it. Thank you. And, so many people don't know what it is, but, as soon as they experience it, they are obsessed. So just tell us what it is. What is yoga nidra?
Yeah. Yoga Nidra is meditation, and that's really a pathway. It's a gateway for us easily and naturally return to our true nature. That's how I would define it. It's an easy path because most people say that they can meditate. It's really hard to sit and be confronted with the thoughts and non-stop distractions that come from the inside, from the outside. And yoga nidra is a pathway that is built into our biology because it's sleep-based meditation. And we don't have to struggle with our thoughts to get into that place where we not only restore our body's reserves and return to a state of wholeness and balance where the body can naturally heal itself. But we also come back to remembering who we are.
Yeah. So how is it different than meditation, just a regular meditation? Because you're right. Like meditation is a barrier for many people. They can't, get out of that thinking mind. So how is this practice different?
Mm-hmm. It's a progression. So, we have a waking state where we normally are, and we start from that place in Yoga Nidra. And we're not forced to shift from the busyness of doing and performing and getting things done into that state of meditation. But we're gradually, just like when we go to bed at night and fall asleep, we go through a progression of brain waves until we enter that state of deep sleep. So we consider that there are four different states of consciousness. The normal when we are, you and I are right now, and most people recognize themselves in this waking state of consciousness. Then there is a deep sleep state and dreaming state. But the Yoga Nidra uses our biology to go through different brain waves to enter the fourth state, which what we call it's a gateway, it's a hidden gateway into bliss, into a true merging with nature, merging with, like, I think of it as an ocean or a sky where we can rest as the observer, as this most expanded state, which most people have a really hard time getting to that state. And in seated meditation, when we just bombarded with our thoughts and discomfort in the body, it's really hard to get to that place. And with yoga nidra, we just lie down. We don't need to struggle with the body and create as a comfortable position, supporting ourselves in that place where we can just rest and enter that mystical place where all kinds of shifts and healing and magic can happen without us forcing and doing.
Yeah, I have experienced that magic and it is beautiful. And I love sharing this practice with people. And I always tell them, like people will say to me after a class or a session that, oh, like I think I fell asleep there for a minute. It's like, good. wonderful. Like you needed that, that is exactly what your body needed. But it is that state that you described, like right when you are waking up in the morning, like before you're fully awake, that little stage that you're in. And also like right before you fall asleep at night, you're still a little bit conscious, but you're not, fully asleep. That is a beautiful place to be in this practice. That is like how you describe where a lot of the healing takes place. So what is required of you to practice yoga nidra?
It's really willingness, I would say, willingness to shift, to have a shift, willingness to experience healing, willingness to surrender, which is a difficult thing for a lot of people, to let go the doing, to let go of the control and holding on to the idea that we can get to things or get things done only through the effort or will. So yoga nidra requires willingness to let go of the effort and pause and let the rest to unfold free of doing. So it's a conscious shift from doing and effort and thinking into feeling and being, where it's a magical place. Like you said, it's a magical place where healing takes place, when we can go beneath the mind. A lot of times the mind is the obstacle to the deeper levels of healing and state of wholeness. And when we can go beyond the mind, the natural healing ability is amplified, and it has its ability to, it's the conditions that are needed for us to experience our own wholeness and wellness.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. You talk a lot in, your teaching and your practice of yoga nidra about that, like the state of, the non-doing, right? Like that's what we're in yoga nidra. We're in the non-doing and we are always in the doing, right? But why do we need that? Why do we need that balance, that shift of being in that state of feeling and being?
Yes, yes. So many of us identify, our identity is tied to the doing, is tied to progress. We feel like our success is directly related to how much we produce, and also our sense of worth is directly related to how much money we make, how much money is in the bank, or how many people we served, or how much we have contributed to the society. But with yoga nidra, the beauty is that through the non-doing practice, through release of doing, subtraction of effort, we actually can get to the place that we are striving to get through all of our efforts. It's like a hamster on the hamster wheel. The more we do, the less we can feel fulfilled. But yoga nidra teaches us on a deep energetical, physiological level how to feel fulfilled, regardless of our accomplishments, or regardless of our title, or regardless of our contribution, even regardless of our successes, things that we accomplish in the world. But it's like we return to that state of a baby, or I think of it as innocence, return to innocence, where we can feel being alive and not equate our feeling good about ourselves to something external outside of ourselves.
Yeah. And what I love about the practice too is working with a healing intention. And, that could address so many different things. It could address, your physical healing, your emotional healing, mental healing. It can address your feelings about yourself, self-love and acceptance. And so can you tell me, what is the role of the intention in the practice and how is it received by the student?
Hmm. Such a good question. I actually have chills throughout my body as you're asking me about this, because yes, intention is like a seed. like a lot of the times people are operating out of dysfunctional or pre-programmed by society or family or traumatic experiences in the childhood behaviors and patterns and ways of thinking. And in Yoga Nidra, we plant a seed of where we want to direct our life, how we truly want to be, what are we desiring within ourselves to grow. It can be feeling confident or feeling powerful, or to be the expression of love. And that seed, which is the truth of who we are, that we have forgotten and somehow disowned within ourselves or disconnected from, we planted in Yoga Nidra in the state where like you were describing, that state when you just wake up or are about to fall asleep, where the body is most relaxed, the mind is spacious and is not filled with thoughts, when there's like an open, clean slate. And it's in that moment where we drop that seed. And at that state, the whole being is able to receive it and believe in it. Like, it's not just a mental belief, but every cell is receiving. Our whole being is receiving that truth about how we want to guide our life moving forward.
Yeah. And I've shared with you before, in my training with you, we were practicing yoga nidra like 2-3 times a day, right? and this was in 2020 at the height of the pandemic. I think we were like still under lockdown. And for me personally, I was experiencing an incredible amount of anxiety and just stress. I mean, anxiety to the point where I almost like didn't want to do the training because I was just too anxious and too stressed. And I am so, so grateful that I did, because it was in the practice that I really identified that I was the source of my anxiety, that it wasn't the pandemic. It wasn't, my son being at school, doing school at home, or what my partner was going through. It was like me. I was manufacturing stress and anxiety. And it was through that, coming back to my peaceful nature and, the real essence of who I am, that I discovered that in this practice. And it really changed my life. It really did. It really transformed the way I proceeded forward. And that's why I love this practice so much and feel it's so healing and want to share it with other people.
It's so touching for me to like just witness how much since 2020, how much your life has taken a whole different direction through that realization that you were the generator of that stress and anxiety, and just like you being able to have, like, you were able to see, not be ingrained in those stress producing thoughts and anxious feelings, but you were able to take a step back and have a bigger perspective that allowed you to disidentify from that stress and eventually release those patterns that were creating the stressful feelings. I'm so proud of you, Erin. So proud of you.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to you for that experience. So, you have been doing this for such a long time. You train people in Yoga Nidra. You yourself have been through many trainings. You practice. What are like some of the more incredible things that you have experienced yourself or witnessed, with the people that you work with?
Mm. Okay, there's so many I can share about. Let's see, I can share about one of my first mystical experiences with Yoga Nidra. It was my personal, I haven't at that point I haven't taken a training in Yoga Nidra, and I was just practicing regularly. And I remember there was this one time when I came back out of the Yoga Nidra state, and I knew I wasn't the same. And during the Yoga Nidra state, I had this experience that it's hard to describe in words, but this body that I thought was Yulia, and those thoughts that were going through my mind that I thought were Yulia, it was like everything became so much bigger. I literally had an experience like cotton candy, but so much bigger. I occupied not just the room I was in, but I was so much bigger. The energy, that's what we tap into in Yoga Nidra, is the energy body that is so much beyond this physical body and mental body. But that was one of the first awakening moments for me to realize, oh my gosh, this reality that I thought was Yulia is so much bigger. And literally, I felt like there were no end, there were no boundaries to this container that I thought was me. So that's really what Yoga Nidra teaches is how to merge into the infinite space beyond this individual self. And that was like, wow, that was incredible. And since then, I've seen so many healing miracles in my clients and in myself. It's like so many. I can tell you another one where I think I maybe shared it in a training, where there was a woman who was going through dental procedures. She was my client, and we were in a one-on-one session. And she kept going to her orthodontist, and he was telling her that her tooth implant wasn't healing. So they had to start over from, I don't exactly know the procedure from the very beginning because it wasn't rooting. And in the Yoga Nidra, she had a feeling like the energy, the streaming sensation that was going exactly to that tooth. And it was like she could feel it. There was some very strong, powerful, like a stream of energy going right into that tooth. And the next day or a couple of days later, she went to the orthodontist and he said, oh my gosh, I thought we were going to start all over from the beginning, but they were literally measuring, scientifically measuring like whatever numbers there were. And the numbers went up, so they didn't have to do that, start from the beginning, that procedure. So the implant rooted, and because the tooth receded, and there was a healing happening there.
Wow. Yeah, that is amazing. You just don't know, right? Like you engage in these practices, and, I talk about this a lot on the podcast. There are so many self-care practices that are like have a cumulative effect, right? Like practicing meditation every day, practicing yoga every day, being, journaling, self-inquiry, like it just adds up and like helps you, in the long run. But this is one of those modalities, I think one of those healing modalities that like one session can really impact your life mentally or physically, as you described. I think that's, I mean, opening yourself up to the possibility of that, right? Like that is really beautiful.
Yeah. And it's both. It's both accumulatively. Yoga Nidra, definitely there's science that shows that after 11 hours of Yoga Nidra, literally the structure of the brain changes. There's so much, it's one of the modalities of meditation that's been a lot of research done. And I have a background in biochemistry. I geek on research, and I love the merging of deep, profound spirituality that Yoga Nidra is incredible portal into, and science that backs it up. So yes, both cumulative, and there are miracles that just can happen in one session.
Absolutely. Once I learned
And
it,
I've seen it on physical level, like yeah.
yeah. Once I learned it, like once you introduced it to me, like I have used it in emergency situations, like I am stressed, I am anxious, like I need to lay down and close my eyes and cover myself with a blanket and listen to a meditation. And it has like saved me in situations.
Oh, amazing.
So
Amazing. So glad that you're like, I think that's the hardest part for a lot of people, is to stop.
yeah,
And you develop that ability knowing when you're overriding your body's intelligence of what it needs, you're able to pause and stop and give yourself the space to self-regulate.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, it can be used that way. So, I am like always so fascinated by people, and it's one of the privileges I have with this podcast that I get to learn about people and how they became who they are. And, you do so many things. Like you do way more than just yoga nidra. And I want you to tell us more about the other work that you do. But how did you come to be this, Yulia? How did you come to be this healer and, shed so much like love and light in the world? I know, you know, life has not always been easy for you. So what was a turning point for you that really had you, lean in this direction of caring for others in the way that you do?
Hmm. Thank you for this question, Erin. I was the pivoting point was when I was in grad school. And you remember I was telling you how like most of us live life on this concept that somehow the more we do, the more we accomplish, that we will one day arrive and we'll feel good about ourselves, we'll feel complete, we'll feel whole. And so I was on that path for decades of following my parents' desires for me to become a scientist. And I thought that I just had to do this. And here I was in grad school making drugs in the laboratory to treat diabetes. But deep on the inside, it was the bottom. I was at the bottom of confidence. I didn't feel like I belonged there. I didn't feel alive. I didn't feel a sense of purpose or a sense of connection to myself, to others. I didn't feel like there was no meaning. And I didn't even know how to find that meaning. So it was one of those yoga nidra and yoga classes where for the very first time I went, and it was just in those stressful moments being in grad school, but something inside of me guided me there. I don't even know how I had the wisdom. It's like beyond my mental ability to know that how I guided myself there. But there was an intuition that brought me to a yoga class that included yoga nidra at the end. And I just remember leaving that class, 3 hour session, maybe for the first time in my life, feeling connected, really connected and light and inspired. And I had no idea what happened. I was like, what was it? I couldn't explain what just happened. But the feeling was so clear that I wanted more of it. And I kept going and I kept going. And there was a point where I just knew that I needed to continue on in that direction, because that was the direction of aliveness and inspiration. And something was there. I didn't quite know mentally why, but my heart kept nudging me to keep moving in that direction. And I became a yoga teacher and then a breath therapist, yoga nidra facilitator. There were so many crumbs that I kept following.
And I love you've talked to me before about following your heart and being in tune with that and listening to it. So what does it feel like to really be in tune and to listen to your heart, follow your heart?
It's such a good question. I actually teach this in the Confident Healer Academy, which is now a year-long program for healers of all kinds of modalities. And one of the exercises that we do is we tune into the body and get really clear what the yes feels like, because we all have a different feeling of a yes. For me, that yes feels like tingles all over my body. Like truly, when it's a clearest yes, my body is buzzing with this very blissful feeling of tingling. And I also know very clearly now what a no feels like to me. It's like my body shuts down. And first step that I teach women is to get embodied. Most people that I know, especially if there is a history of trauma, live outside of the body. And when we live outside of the body, it's really hard to know what is a yes, what is a no, what is the heart calling, and when is it like more of a I should be doing something. And when we are connected to the body and can listen to those impulses, intuitive hits, when it's a yes and what is a no, it's much easier to make decisions and follow the heart.
And how, that's beautiful and amazing. And we all need to learn how to be connected with our bodies and listen to our hearts and trust our intuition and all of that. But what do you do when like the thinking mind comes in and the fears and doubts and insecurities have you questioning your heart? How do you manage that, and how do you teach other people to manage that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a step by step. I have a whole process in the Confident Healer Academy but the first step is to get grounded. When all of those insecurities, fears, doubts come up, what is happening is there's a disconnect. I actually use a pendulum to teach people to understand what is their mechanism, because everybody has a different way of getting ungrounded and disconnected from the body. And the more we pay attention and get curious without judging ourselves for doing it, because it has been a mechanism for survival and getting through challenges that we, when we were younger, didn't have the resources to get through without becoming ungrounded, without disassociating from our physical bodies. So teaching people how to get grounded and how to stay grounded and how to stay connected to the feeling body, even when it's especially when it's uncomfortable, especially when there is a fear, and how to breathe and welcome and befriend the uncomfortable feelings of anxiety, right? How to let the anxiety, because there's a really powerful statement that I always share with my people. Anxiety, for example, is excitement. It's the same energy as excitement, but without the breath. So that's why for me, I teach integral breath therapy to my clients, how to self-regulate and you experience so much of it. So maybe you can also share from your personal
Yeah.
experience.
Well, tell us what it is. I fully feel like we probably could do a full other episode on this, but tell us about this breath therapy that you do.
Yes, breath is a bridge. Breath is we just breathe, right? It's our involuntary function, but we have a control over our breath. And breath connects unconscious mind, things that we are not conscious of, a lot of the patterns that run our life, and our conscious mind. So breath connects what we're not aware of, like a lot of the beliefs about I'm not good enough, or fears or insecurities, and it connects with our conscious mind. So we engage with this process of, it's very simple. It's open mouth, conscious, connected breath, where we connect inhale and exhale. And what it does is it activates the inner healer in a really powerful way, where whatever is under, like an iceberg, on the top, what we see of an iceberg is what we're aware of. But what we don't see on the below the surface, it's everything. Most of it is what's running our life. All of those beliefs and fears and insecurities that run us. But through this process of conscious connected breathing, all of those unconscious patterns come up to the surface. And through that awareness of our unconscious patterns, we can heal it. And we can, in that state of altered state that breath takes us into, we can create different decisions. We can make different decisions. We can heal unresolved issues of the inner child. We can go back to what was done wrong and create a new story and create a new reality and new patterns and actions in our life, and act differently and show up differently in the world.
Yeah, and I can speak from experience because I had the privilege of working with you. I don't know, it was a couple of months that we met weekly, sometimes twice weekly, and you guided me through this breath work. And I've been in talk therapy for most of my adult life, and there was an incredible like acceleration of healing and understanding and uncovering that occurred for me working with you, doing that breath work. And so I tell people, all the time who I feel like if they feel that they're in crisis and what they're doing is not working, that, this is a beautiful modality of just uncovering. Like I was able to just get to the root of so many of my fears and insecurities, and which was, really the root of my anxiety. And it just opened my eyes to things, uncovered, things that I never uncovered in, decades of talk therapy.
Yeah, that's what it does. I'm so happy that you gifted yourself that, and you were brave. It takes a lot of courage to go beyond because the mind, when we are in talk therapy, we're trying to solve things on the level of the mind, where we have to go beyond the mind to what's buried and allow the healing to happen from that place. It takes a lot of bravery, and I see this in you, Erin.
Thank you for that work. So, from all of your teachings, from all that you have learned, all that you have witnessed and experienced and felt, what do you think is the greatest lesson that you would want to share with everyone?
Yes. Yeah. The biggest lesson from my personal experience is to embrace the shadow, the parts, which I mean by shadow, the parts of ourselves that we are most uncomfortable with, to show to the world and befriend those parts. Like, for example, for me, I thought that I was like, there was so much shame that I was carrying inside, and I was hiding because I was afraid that people would reject me, they won't love me, they will judge me. But the more I can myself befriend and love the parts of me that seemingly are unlovable or broken, the more it's like puzzles of the whole. The more I can just bring everything, come here, I love you, there's nothing wrong with you, you are a part of me. Like insecurities, things that I didn't like about myself, but the more I can bring it, like I was so afraid of speaking. I passed out, literally, I passed out taking speech class in college. And the more I befriended that little girl in me who was terrified of holding a mic, every time somebody would pass a mic when I was in a group setting or standing on stage, the more I embraced that terrified little girl who was so afraid. She was just petrified. The more I held her and let her know that she's lovable, that there's nothing wrong with being afraid, there's nothing wrong with being ashamed, there's nothing wrong with sadness, and embracing all the feelings and perceptions and emotions. And that's what brings us to wholeness and feeling like there's nothing to hide. And that's the biggest lesson that has been for me, and that's what I hope to bring to others, is to embrace the wholeness, embrace all parts, especially the ones that feel that they feel less proud of.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really beautiful. I know that there is that you spend a lot of time staying grounded in your purpose, and you are like a beautiful example of the power of self-care, because you have to be feeling good in order to do the work that you do, in order to show up for the people that you work with. So what are just some of the practices that really keep you grounded in your purpose?
Mm. That's a good question. And it's not the same all the time. Like I go through periods and I adjust depending on where I am. I'll be very honest, right now I'm going through a lot of hormonal changes and imbalances. So it requires a whole different level of self-care that I didn't need before. So now I have so many tools and I really carve out a lot of time in my day to take care of my energy, to release EMF because I'm on the computer, I teach online a lot, to have morning that I don't look at the screens. I'm just in my self-reflection, time in nature, journaling. Yoga Nidra is definitely a big part of my day. And movement, exercise is a really big part for me, just to really move my body and let the energy circulate through my body. And things like touch. One of my love languages is touch, so I gift myself Thai massage, and I'm also a Thai massage trained, so I love trading, and touch is a big part of it for me. And dance, another thing that I like, what brings aliveness and feeling like I'm caring in a deep way, and it's a way for me to express myself, is to dance.
I love that. Yeah, those are all great practices to have. And on top of that, so on this podcast, I always ask people, what do they do for self-care? And you've described many practices that, are just a part of your routine and keep you grounded. But like, what else? What else does Yulia do for self-care? Like, is there something that maybe would like surprise others that you would consider to be a part of your self-care practice?
Hmm. I connect with my future self. Maybe this will be a surprise. I regularly, daily, write from my future self perspective, gratitude and celebrations from the future Yulia. And if the word future doesn't resonate with some of the audience, you can replace it with higher self or evolved or wise self. So the you who you are aspiring to grow into, I actually write from her perspective in the present moment. Like I would say, I am so happy and grateful that I am taking women to a retreat in Costa Rica, and that I am a leader of awakening women um, all over the world. So I'm just writing and really feeling it, not just writing from the mind again, but I'm feeling and embodying it. I also do some silly things. I actually posted a video today on my Facebook profile with my dog. I embody affirmations, like intentions that are planted into Yoga Nidra. I get really goofy with it and I embody it. I just say it out loud. Like for example, today I said, I am powerful and purposeful. And I spread my arms wide and I feel it. I get grounded into the earth and I feel the power of the earth and the heaven using this vessel to be the powerful and purposeful expression of love and source energy.
I love that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your heart and also teaching us about Yoga Nidra. And a little plug for me is that I teach it every Monday night at 7:15. So if you want to experience it with me, hit me up. I'll send you the details. I'll sign you up for a class. But thank you, Yulia. It has really meant a lot to have you here. And I just admire you and your work and how you continue to grow and evolve and expand the network of healers. Like you are a healer of healers, and we really need that in the world. So thank you for all the work that you do. How can we find you, follow you, and show our love and appreciation for you?
Thank you. Thank you, Erin, so much. You can find me at I have Instagram page, Confident Healer Academy. I can share a link with it. I also have a Facebook group, which is for healers and coaches and yoga teachers, meditation instructors, and visionaries and women. It's for women only who it's like a support. I go live there every week on Mondays and share Monday miracle trainings. And it's a Trust Your Healing Gift Sisterhood. That's the name of the group. And also I have a Facebook page where you can connect with me. And yeah, it's my honor. It feels like I am, as much as there are times when I want to hide and just not be visible, like I have those insecurities running through me still a lot of the days. But I know that love and my purpose that brought me here wants me to show up and serve in a bigger way than the ego mind tries to talk me out of.
Well, I'm grateful for you. Thank you so
And
much.
Erin, thank you, Erin. I'm so grateful that you are taking the gift and sharing it. It means so much to me to know that you are sharing it in the world.